Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of GTA Fancast with me, Gully. Obviously, going to be reviewing an exceptional victory. Gary O'Neill's greatest of his career, beating what he called himself the best team ever. If that's what you want to tag it with, that's absolutely fine by me, Gary. But a win against Pep Guardiola's Man City, the holders of the treble, as we know at this moment in time, and there are many things that I think you can kind of pick up on from the comments that Gary O'Neill made. Obviously, the game going entirely to plan. He spoke specifically about how the game looked how we wanted it to look, and I just wanted to kind of touch on that very quickly with my tactics board here. Now, we all know that Pep Guardiola is a very meticulous guy, very specific in what he expects from his players and things, and it's become quite well understood that Man City set up in this kind of three defensive formation with five players strung across the front line, and then your midfield kind of set up depending on who they're playing. Sometimes they play with a double pivot. Yeah, against us on Saturday, they kind of went with more of a, a number six and two eights kind of in front of them, with Alvarez and Nunes in front of Mateo Kovacic. Now, I think Wolves understood that. They understood that their roles and the requirements of the team off the back of that as well. You can see straight away, obviously, Carl Walker providing the extreme width on the right hand side and Jeremy Doku on the left. And really, it was all about kind of combining a little bit of a man-to-man approach with just blocking up the space, right? And the key people, I think, in that kind of system were Totti, who was tasked with keeping an eye on Phil Foden. Mario Lemina was very close to Julian Alvarez, and obviously Craig Dawson and his battle with Erling Haaland as well. Max Kilman was kind of ostensibly the spare man within that setup, who was generally tasked with if Carly did ever get a yard of space against Dawson, then doubling up on him. And I think the other job that has kind of gone unnoticed slightly is how much ground João Gomez covered on this right hand side to really support Semedo, get stuck into the other number eight, and allow Pedro Neto, to cheat a little bit and stay high. And that's where obviously we ended up taking the lead from. A couple of highlighted examples of what I mean by some of the man-to-man stuff that we did. You can see here, this was the kind of shape of the game, and I've circled specifically Totti and Lamina there, looking after Foden and Julian Alvarez respectively. You can see in other instances again how much Totti was looking to be aggressive against Foden. He wasn't sitting in the defensive line and waiting for him to come onto him. If he dropped deeper, he was going along to high press. And then you can see Lamina kind of keeping an eye out for Alvarez's movements there as well. In the second half, there's actually an example where they've basically swapped positions because of the way Foden and Alvarez have rotated. So, really aggressive approach. I've always commented on, I think, on how we're a better team at getting the ball back than keeping it. And I think those two guys are really epitomised that. And when it comes to asking them to do a job of that type, then it's an amazing. We've got an amazing couple of guys there who are really diligent and really aggressive, and something that we've lacked over the years, I think, as well. The other man who was singled out by Gary O'Neill in terms of out of possession was Mateus Cunha. Spoke about how he had a really kind of specific requirement of his striker in screening the central defensive midfielder, who was Mateo Kovacic. And you can see here, and this was one passage of play specifically where Cunha was asked to do, which showed basically what Cunha was asked to do throughout the game. You can see with Akanji having the ball in that right centre half spot, at each point within these three screenshots, there isn't a pass on into Mateo Kovacic, because from there, that's where you're likely to get pulled apart with midfielders getting dragged out, etc., etc. So he goes from cutting off the pass into the central defensive midfielder. The ball goes out to the centre half. When he goes to press, he ensures that there isn't a channel to play the ball into Kovacic again. And then once the ball goes back out to Akanji, then he's shuffling back in and he's got his eye on his shoulder. So if he does ever need to go back out to Ruben Diaz, who it would have been, then he understands where Kovacic's position is, and then you know straight away whether he can or he can't. You can't go and press the man, basically. So, I mean, out of possession game, obviously very, very important in a game against City. I think it's obviously a big plus for us that they were missing the likes of Rodri, the likes of Kevin De Bruyne, obviously Bernardo Silva as well. They seem to have gone with this whole kind of ball carrying system, which I think against teams who are going to press you high, obviously has its merits. But in a game like that, where we were asking them to kind of come onto us and make things happen, you saw how little they were able to create off the back of it. Now, you need fortune against City. Obviously, with the first goal, despite of course, Pedro Neto did a whole lot of great work in the build up to it by carrying the ball up that distance. Really made a mockery of Nathan Ake, who was a really solid 1v1 defender. Fortuitous with the finish, coming off Ruben Dias. There was a degree of fortune about the second goal, but I think again, being able to go be drawn level and then pick ourselves up and go out again. And actually, people assume that we're just hitting Man City on the counter. It wasn't actually a counter attack. We actually started that move with the ball in Jose Sar's hands. Nelson Semedo makes a brave run upfield. Kilman picks him out nicely, and we find ourselves in this amazing situation. I just want to really highlight Hwang's good work here, because I think there's always a temptation from the fan side, overload the box. When we've got the ball wide, get as many players in there as possible, attack various areas of the box. One thing I will continue to kind of hammer Matheus Cunha on is his ability to get across the front post, because he doesn't do it enough. But just looking back at this situation, you can see straight away, obviously, Man City, you've got enough numbers back, you would say, to kind of manage that situation out. The back four's in place, essentially, and they've got another midfielder dropping in to kind of support that as well. And we've only got 3 players up in attack. You can see straight away, Nelson Semedo, he kind of delays delivering the ball, because obviously Cunha, while he's making his way into the box, isn't quite there yet. And with the back four retreating, I think it's always really, really important to have a second layer of a attack coming in to pick up any of those loose ends. And the temptation, I think, from the crowd, the thought processes from our side would have been, Hwang, why aren't you attacking the back post in this scenario, as an example? But if he does, for a start, the loose ball lands at a Man City player's feet, and you might get caught behind the ball. I mean, the likelihood of this necessarily, getting broken on in that situation isn't that great, but at the same time, he'd be an extra man ahead of the ball as opposed to behind it. But also, we're outnumbered. It has to be a really good delivery, a perfect delivery. Nelson Semedo will probably be the first man to admit his delivery isn't always the most consistent when it comes to being in these kind of positions. But he puts enough of a question mark on the cross that the defenders have to deal with it, right? And that's the first thing you have to do when you're in those kind of positions. Don't make it an easy ball to clear. And what ends up happening, obviously, is I think it's Akanji who fails to clear it properly. And all those 4 defenders that have retreated are basically out of the game now. They can't impact the ball. And because Hwang hasn't gone flying into the box to actually make his way into getting on the end of the initial cross, he's the one there who can be that second wave of attack. And Foden, I think it is, Phil Foden, is the only player who can kind of impact him landing the ball in that space that I've highlighted there. Now, he's not a natural defender, obviously. His instincts around that area, it might not be as intuitive as other players, someone like Rodri maybe. But Hwang is instinctive in these kind of areas, always manages to get himself in goal-scoring positions. And obviously, we know the rest. He has the initial shot, gets blocked, and then Matheus Cunha sets him up to win the game. And I think it just showed a really nice bit of intelligent play, which had a slight nuance to it, had a slight kind of counterintuitive, not necessarily, but something that you wouldn't necessarily consider from a fan's perspective as being a good idea or a good decision. Now, it could have been the case that the ball got flashed across the back post and he wasn't in there, and he'd get berated for not necessarily getting on the end of it in that situation. But the way Semedo delayed the delivery, he had a bit of time to think about what he was doing, and ultimately create that situation where the defence had to deal with the ball, and made that situation work for Hwang, which I thought was really, really good. Just wanted to finish up on some of the kind of detail around how well we did to stop Man City. Erling Haaland had 14 touches in total in the game, only had 1 shot, within the fixture, then ended up with 0.06 xg in total, I think. So yeah, really limited his involvement. Phil Foden, you would probably argue Man City's most creative player on the pitch. Didn't complete a single pass into the penalty area. It was the lowest XG they've accumulated this season. Now, it was also the lowest XG against that we've conceded all season as well. So kudos, hats off, brilliant performance. Really could be a catalyst for us having a much better season now. And it's always important, I think, to get a home win. And the fans were on side, obviously, kind of buoyed by Matheus Nunes' arrival back at Molineux as well. And I just think, going into the Villa game, we've got another kind of gear in us now, and we'll be looking forward to it a hell of a lot more. Do I think we should be going with about 5? Maybe, maybe not. It was quite a bespoke approach to tackle the Man City problem. So I'll be interested to see what Gary O'Neill does going into that game. But onwards and upwards, and looking forward to it for sure.